In a dark stone tower on an island in the Rhine, a powerful archbishop screams as he's devoured alive by an army of mice. It's a horrifying end for a man so hated. Other legends say the devil himself dragged him from his palace and tossed him into the volcanic fires of Mount Etna. For centuries, that's been the story of Bishop Hatto. But that's the myth. The real story behind the death of one of medieval Germany's most ruthless political figures, Archbishop Hatto I, is even more fascinating. It's not a story of divine punishment, but of a political smear campaign so successful it turned a man into a monster for over 1,000 years. This is the story of how history is written by the victors and how easily propaganda can become fact. So, who was the real Hatto I? Before he became a fairy tale villain, Hatto was one of the most powerful men in the crumbling remains of Charlemagne's empire. Born around 850 to a noble family, he wasn't just a simple priest. He was a Benedictine monk, an abbot, and a razor-sharp political operator in a world of chaos. His world was the Kingdom of East Francia, what would one day become Germany. But in the late 9th century, it was a total mess. Charlemagne's great empire had been splintered by his heirs into warring kingdoms. East Francia itself was a patchwork of powerful duchies like Saxony, Franconia, and Bavaria, each ruled by ambitious dukes who cared more about their own turf than any kind of unity. To make matters worse, Viking raiders were terrorizing the north while Magyar horsemen burned and looted from the east. The king's authority was weak, and the realm was constantly on the verge of civil war. This is the world Hatto stepped into. He rose to become abbot of several major monasteries, which back then weren't just places of prayer. They were huge landowners and hubs of political power. His intelligence and loyalty didn't go unnoticed. The East Frankish king, Arnulf of Carinthia, took a liking to him and, in 891, appointed him Archbishop of Mainz, one of the most important jobs in the German church. Hatto quickly became the king's top advisor, so close that people called him the heart of the king. He passionately believed that only a strong, centralized monarchy could stop the kingdom from tearing itself apart. This belief would make him powerful, but it would also make him some very dangerous enemies. Hatto's power hit its absolute peak after King Arnulf died in 899. The heir, Louis, was only 6 years old. Hatto was appointed regent, making him the effective ruler of the entire kingdom. For the next 12 years during the reign of Louis the Child, Hatto was the one pulling all the strings from his seat in Mainz. And he was completely ruthless. His main goal was to crush the power of the regional dukes and bring it all under the crown, a crown shout-controlled. This put him on a collision course with some of the most powerful families in the land. His biggest rivals were the Babenbergs of Franconia, who were locked in a violent feud with another family, the Conradines. Hatto picked a side, the Conradines. The conflict came to a bloody head in 906. The Conradines, backed by Hatto, clashed with the Babenbergs in a pitched battle. 2 of the 3 Babenberg brothers were killed. The last one, a man named Adalbert, retreated to his castle. Hatto saw his chance. According to the chronicles written by his enemies, Hatto, acting as the king's chancellor, sent Adalbert a message promising him safe conduct if he surrendered. Trusting the word of an archbishop and the kingdom's regent, Adalbert gave himself up. But it was a lie. As soon as he was out of his fortress, Adalbert was seized, tried for treason, and beheaded. Now, did Hatto really break a sacred oath? Modern historians debate it, and some think the story was just a fabrication by his enemies. But in the end, it didn't matter. The story spread like wildfire. To his rivals, especially the powerful nobles of Saxony, this was the ultimate proof of his treachery. Hatto wasn't just a political opponent anymore. He was a dishonorable tyrant. He'd made an enemy of the Saxons. and they had long memories and a serious talent for storytelling. After Hatto's death, it would be the Saxon chroniclers who wrote the history of this era, and they made sure to paint him as the biggest monster imaginable. Before we get to the wild stories they told and the real cause of Hatto's death, if you're enjoying this dive into historical propaganda, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. We release new videos every week, separating the hard facts from the historical fiction. After a lifetime of political warfare, Archbishop Hatto I died on May 15th, 913. So, how did he really die? Was he struck down by a bolt of lightning as a sign of God's wrath? Or was he snatched from his bed by the devil and hurled into the fires of Mount Etna? The reality? It was almost certainly none of the above. These sensational stories came from the hostile Saxon chroniclers who hated him. They were political propaganda, plain and simple, meant to destroy the reputation of a man they couldn't beat in life. The real story is far less dramatic. While no one recorded the exact cause, Hatto most likely died of an illness, something common at the time. He died not in a flash of divine fire, but the way most people did in the 10th century, from natural causes. But what about that famous story? The one with the tower, the famine, and the army of mice? This is where the character assassination gets truly brilliant, because the most famous story told about Hatto I isn't even about him. The legend goes like this. During a terrible famine, a cruel bishop named Hatto hoarded all his grain. When starving peasants begged for food, he laughed and tricked them into gathering in an empty barn. He then barred the doors and burned them all alive, sneering at their screams, "Hear the mice squeak." As divine punishment, a plague of mice descended on his castle, pursuing him until he fled to a stone tower on an island in the Rhine. But the mice swam across the river, chewed through the doors, and devoured the wicked bishop alive. That tower near the town of Bingen is still called the Mäusturm, the Mouse Tower. It's a chilling tale, and it has absolutely no historical basis. The legend was originally pinned on a different Archbishop of Mainz, Hatto II, who lived 50 years later. It seems the tale was a popular piece of folklore about greed that could be attached to any unpopular figure. Because Hatto I had been so effectively smeared by his enemies, his name was already synonymous with treachery, making it easy for later generations to blur the lines and pin this gruesome legend on the original hated bishop. So, in the end, Hatto I wasn't a saint, but he wasn't a comic book villain either. He was a deeply ambitious and brilliant political player in a brutal age. He was a master of statecraft who fought to hold a crumbling kingdom, together with cunning and, yes, ruthless force. He was a key player in getting Conrad being elected to the throne after Louis the Child died, saving the kingdom from collapsing into total civil war. But his success created a legacy of pure hatred. His enemies, the dukes whose power he worked to crush, couldn't defeat him in life, so they defeated him in death. Through chronicles and campfire stories, they transformed their political rival into a monster. They crafted a story of divine payback so powerful that it completely buried the real man. Hatto's story is the ultimate reminder that history isn't just a record of what happened. It's a story told by those left to write it. And in his case, his enemies made sure their version was the one everyone remembered for 1,000 years. What do you think? Does Hatto's real story make him more or less interesting than the myth? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to see more historical truths unearthed, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.